Tovim Ashnayim in Echad. There you go. Shots ring out. It takes 10. Shut it.
Grassing home.
Yeah, this is organized for.
Okay, good morning. I'd like to thank everybody for coming to this year, the finale of Baruch Hashem, another wonderful year of Shirim, and the audience over here that comes live every week. You all know you're the Iker. It could be we're watched by thousands online, but the people that come week in and week out is really what makes the share. And Harvey, thank you very much. And everybody who contributes, who's part of it, it really, really is amazing. I think it's appropriate just to spend a short moment just talking where we are in the world today. I think when we daven today, we have to be a little bit more thankful that we were zocheh to see Hashkacha Pratis that saved the world from being an absolute chaos as to what we are now, semi-chaos. And it really, what happened, moments in history, there are people in this room that remember where they were when JFK was shot. I remember where I was in 9/11. But what happened yesterday was definitely a very, very dangerous situation, which was this close from killing the president, President Trump. And it's a very big bracha, and the world itself notices the divine providence that he wasn't killed. I just happened to see a beautiful pshat yesterday on a Chazal explaining, there's a medrash that says, the moment after Yaakov Avinu left Yitzchak's room, he received the brachos. Basically, in one door, out the other, came an Esav. That means by a moment, this whole future, the brachos of Klal Yisrael, was almost spoiled. And I saw the Mefarish explain that by us, we're nervous about things. And if we miss something by a hair's breadth, the odds are we're going to be in trouble. By HaKadosh Baruch Hu, there's no difference. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, when he does things in a divine Hashkacha Pratis way, every bullet has an address. You can miss by a hair's breadth because who's the one controlling the bullet? It's not the shooter. It's HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And I think that's a tremendous perspective in history, not just from a medrash by Yaakov Avinu, but we saw that, whoever saw videos with their own eyes yesterday. Now today's share, it's very impressive. The president himself, recognized it, and
he asked his grandchildren if he should bench school.
Yes.
I don't think so.
Rabbi, I don't think so.
So hold on. Shh. Now, we have a lot to do today. What I want to do is go through a whole personality. By this, I paid up my debts. The past 3 weeks, we knocked off, careful what I say, but we went through 3 different halachic perspectives of Gedolim. I finished my quota for the year. And I want to go through an amazing, amazing personality, which I'll touch on in a moment. But following that, I would like to do, as promised, the top 10 list, a review of the Shirim of the year, but in particular, a top 10 list of Shirim from, where's Josh? From this year.
It's a tradition.
Now, it's a tradition, as are the bagels. New place, very good. Okay. Today's shir is entitled Rabbi Yisroel Belsky. His impact, a genius impacting kosher certification and controversies. That was the title that we gave to today's shir. Now, I feel very bad. Last week, in contrast, they literally were, last week we did Rabbi Bluth. Today we're doing Rabbi Belsky. They both were poskim. They actually lived literally minutes walk from each other. They really operated in two separate realms to a certain degree. Rabbi Belsky spent his whole life in Yeshiva Torah Das, while in the neighborhood there, where Bluth spent most of his years in MTJ in Manhattan. But they lived near each other and they had shaykhs to each other. But Rav Belsky's his own deserves it and has, as you can see, his own book, his own story, because it's absolutely an amazing, amazing story of another American-produced posek Adam Gadol. Rav Belsky was born in 1938. I live in New York City. And he was born as a gifted child, to the extent that he was somebody, the biographies honestly portray him, that, when he was younger, people didn't necessarily see he's become an Adam Gadol. He was brilliant, but he wasn't necessarily tame. It seems he grew a lot in his midos, ben Amel Chavero, over the years, and also his learning. It doesn't sound like in his early years, nowadays, as soon as a kid could read, obviously we teach him Torah, but he's sitting in Masmidim programs and Ben Azmanims and this. Right, Belsky was not described as that in his early years, and he was brilliant, no question about it. He took the SAT, and he scored a 1560.
You didn't take it again?
He was accused of cheating.
He was accused of cheating.
He was accused of cheating, and they made him take it again.
Oh.
He got a 1600 the second time around. He got a New York Regent Scholarship, which is a very big deal in those days. And he did fantastic on all his New York Regents, and they gave him a scholarship. Luckily, at this point in life, he started getting involved in learning on a stronger level. And at that point, there's a story, his sister comes home, his mother says, you know what? Shirley became a masmid. Like somewhat overnight. He started really applying himself, getting involved in learning, just at the right time. And he had to make a life decision. He had a letter, basically full scholarship, wherever you want. And he deferred it. He asked to defer it. He was the first deferment in New York City history. He was able to get his scholarship deferred for a year. Why did he get his scholarship deferred? Very pashut. Because at that point, it was a one-year decision. I want to learn for a year. I'm pushing off my college for 1 year. And then we'll see what happens after.
Did you go to public school?
No. Went to yeshiva. She went to yeshiva Torah Das.
Okay.
And that's probably part of the reason they excuse him of cheating. Because, hey, right? Nobody from Evergreen got like that. But took it again. And,
They don't teach secular subjects.
okay. No, they do. But we'll get to that at the end. We'll get to that. Hold on. I'll jump into that at this moment. I happened to listen last night to Hesped from Avram Chaim Levin, the Rosh Yeshiva of Tel Chicago, and he talked about a Torah Masorah meeting where the yeshivas were dealing with a problem for years. Now, to take New York City, at least until recently, you have to take regents, and that's the only way to get a regent diploma. And in the biology region, there are two problems. A, it goes through what's it called?
Evolution.
Evolution.
Yeah.
And B, you have to know well reproduction and that whole area. And these are two things which are not going to be taught necessarily the way that the Board of Ed of New York City would want. They're struggling all the time with textbooks and this. Basically, they came up with was they had someone write two pamphlets, one on evolution and one on reproduction, that was approved by all the Gedolim and was done perfectly. And they said, it was written by a Talmud Muvak of Belsky. Well, it came out, the Talmud Muvak said, yeah, I assisted on it, or Belsky wrote it. This brilliant man made sure, years later, to leave his stamp that yeshiva boys should get as good an education as they could. They shouldn't, some yeshivas, they wouldn't let them take those parts of the test. And no, it changed. Like, he taught the right way and no one had a problem with it. But he had that decision to make. What should he do? Should he go to yeshiva, stay in yeshiva, or switch to college? And he was involved strong enough in his learning. One of his rebbeim who was very close to was Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky. And he decided to stay in yeshiva. Not only that, story has it that he'd walk around in his pocket with the letter that he got from the Board of Ed. And he would show people that would debate same type of situations. What should they do in life? He would pull out, he's like, buddy, I have free college. Here. I turned this down, because I wanted to contribute to Klal Yisrael in the Torah way, in the realm of Torah. I'm going to get back to this point in a moment. But just to finish off his biography, he basically learned in Torah V'das, and we'll see taught in Torah V'das most of his life. In between, he did have a strong shaykhus to Moshe Feinstein. And besides getting smicha from Yeshiva Torah V'das, he also got a personal smicha from Moshe. I found in the Soros Moshe volumes of questions asked to Moshe. Multiple times it has Rav Belsky asking questions over there. He also learned in Beis Medrash Elyon, which in its day was the premier yeshiva in Kollel, up in Monsey, New York. It's still actually in the same spot. I found an amazing thing. There's a beautiful appreciation, I read it, in the Jewish Observer, about the heyday of this yeshiva Beis Medrash Elyon. And it was written by someone named S. Ben Dov. S. Ben Dov was a pen name of Rav Belsky. Yisroel, his friend's parents knew him as Yisroel. Ben Dov, his father's name was Dov. S. Ben Dov wrote the most beautiful appreciation, well written. He got skills in yeshiva. Okay, it was brilliant too. But just beautiful writing about the days that he had in yeshiva, with an appreciation of every Rebbe in yeshiva, down to the cook of the yeshiva. He writes on and on about the amazing nature of the cook. That was, by that time in life, as a young bacher, he already appreciated it. It could be he wrote this years later. But an amazing appreciation of just everyone around him. Two other quick biographical points, which are very much part of his life. In 1967, he started working, I believe, or maybe it was dropped earlier. He was a camper and staff member. But I have down 1967, he started in Camp Aguda, and he was there for decades. I have friends of mine who were privileged to be Talmidim of his during the summer, Camp Masmidim, and it was life-changing. One of my friends, Chavrusa, was a Grossman, used to go to Camp Aguda. The stories that he had from Rav Belsky are just like mind-blowing. And we all know the other aspect. Rav Belsky was also very involved in Kashrus, one of the heads of the OU, together with Yibad L'chaim of Hershel Schachter. And his contribution on that, we'll touch on, is a tremendous thing. Rav Belsky, unfortunately, in 2013, had a he had his own near-death experience, where he had a ruptured esophagus. The situation that he was in, the doctor said it was 100 times worse than if he would have had a heart attack. And it was not possible that he would live, yet alone ever recover. And Rav Belsky miraculously lived and recovered, a lot of time in rehabilitation. Basically, I believe less than a year later, he was already out. And he was back to, quote-unquote, normal, eventually back at Yeshiva Torah V'das, back at the OU, back at doing those things. Those extra, close to 4 years that he had, he went to Russia to go help Jews over there. He traveled to Russia not long after getting out. Baruch Hashem, he married off his youngest child. during that time and did more and more those last 4 years of his life for Klal Yisrael until in 2017 he passed away eerily. Hashkacha Pratis.
2016.
I'm more into the Hebrew date. It was 4 years to the Hebrew date of the ruptured esophagus. It's mamash like HaKadosh Baruch Hu clearly gave him 4 more years. Right? Right, that's what they shot, right. But 4 more years. But Belsky was one who also miraculously got that.
He got the 4 years before Shabbos.
And Lamaisei Kamash Allah, unfortunately, passed away from cancer. What I believe 3 aspects I want to talk about Belsky, which is very much part of his halachic footprint that he gave. Because number 1, I want to talk about his genius as a posek. Number 2, in the realm of kashrus, what he did for the world of kashrus. And number 3, how he got involved in major controversies and was a tough person, was a strong person. He was able to take hits. He was able to take shots. He was a tall, imposing man. And he was able to stand up and literally take on the world when controversies broke out. So these are 3 issues I want to go through. Number 1, his genius. Now that unto itself, when he decided to stay in yeshiva, even within his family, the stories of people deriding him. What are you doing? You're wasting your time. A mind like yours, you could do so much, you could change the world. Yisroel Belsky clearly felt, I am going to change the world. I am going to impact the world. I'm going to use my genius in the Torah world. And what he was able to do, it was just unbelievable. He wasn't just a genius. He was a super talented person. Avram Chaim Levin said in his Hesped, a lot of times you say on a person, he's a jack of all trades, but a master of none. He said, Rav Belsky was a jack of all trades and a master of all. He was a moel who was actually able to do a bris while he also served as a sandik sitting down. He was a sheikhet. He was known for doing tons and tons of shchitas publicly and demonstrating. You can find the videos by the OU. Maybe not all the gory things they edit out, but he did these things. Keseder, right? Behema gasas and dakos. He was a sofer.
You can also shop with a whole new
He was also a sofer. That's what you do. He was also a sofer. He was also Bal Koreh. He was a Bal Menagin. There's a website from Belsky after his Talmudim published of 50 different nigunim that he preserved and collected from Europe, from here and there. People told him, he got over the years, him going through niggin by niggin, like all these things. It's amazing. The one beautiful niggin I happened to listen to last night, Laser Silver, the Gedolim, famous, in the army suit, World War II. He had a song, an old European song, I don't think he made it up himself, where he goes through the numbers 13 and down, quoting different Gemaras that talk with numbers. Amazing. Tesha Chanuyos, just in a sing song of all different Gemaras.
Who knows one?
Show you just another 2 stories before I get into halachic areas. Rabbi Genak testified. No, it was Rabbi Yoel Schoenfeld. He used to be a young Israel of Tea Hills, worked in the OU Kashrus. He said it was his job. Rabbi Belsky used to come on Thursdays to the OU office in Manhattan. During his lunch break, he asked Rabbi Schoenfeld to make a copy of the New York Times crossword puzzle, which they say Thursday was the toughest day. And he would sit there during lunch as he ate and quickly go through the whole crossword puzzle. Brilliant. One time he remarked to Rabbi Genak as they're sitting in Rabbi Genak's office with a window overlooking Manhattan. He says, I could swim from here, points to the Statue of Liberty that you see from the office, to over there and back. He was a man of tremendous strength. What's actually amazing about that swimming story is originally when he was younger, he had a fear of swimming. And one summer he told himself, I'm just going to get over it. He was a teenager, getting over it. And he worked on himself and worked on himself. And that's really the way he worked on his meals too. Geniuses usually don't have patience for other people. They're too quick. This is a man, someone just said it as he came in, he seemed like he had the time in the world for everybody. He was a patient person. That's only because he worked on himself. He stayed in the world of Torah. He once reflected about professors. Professors, they love showing off their wisdom. Yeah, but really, they have the vanity of school kids. The gaiva, haughtiness. He was a person, the smartest man in any room, but he didn't just show off his brilliance. He worked diligently for Klal Yisrael. Now, genius, we'll see, is something that's important very much. It ties into kashrus, which is going to be our second area. But before I even get to that, there's a famous Maisa. I believe my friend was there when it occurred. He used to love stargaze. He was an amateur astrologist. He loved stargazing. So one clear night, he's walking in the mountains in New York City with Talmidim there. He looks up. He's like, something's off. Like, what? He's like, yeah, it's supposed to be like this, and something off. One of the Talmidim go. They try to figure out, okay, right? Belsky realized something was off. What do? Somehow they went through a train and they got to NASA. And yeah, there were some scientists with the Hubble telescope that also noticed it. As did the rabbi walking in upstate.
He used to take the boys in Aguda, I think. And he used to show them different things. Mm-hmm. And then that one night they said, well, what's this? He says, I don't know, it doesn't belong, it's an anomaly. Yeah. And then on the papers, they said last night or whatever, there was an anomaly. Yeah. That's why I heard this.
Right.
Same idea.
But we owe Makar Satov. It also was revealed in this hesped I heard from Rav Chaim Levin, that anytime there's a Gemara in Shas Bavli that talks about astronomy, astrology, they were all written by Rav Belsky. All the art scroll Gemaras, all the Gemara that ever had any Gemara that talks about these things, was all done by Rav Belsky. He was the one. Note. We wouldn't have art scroll Gemaras on these things making any bit of sense. If not for him. He had... Yeah. I put one diagram that happens to appear in his Sefer Shulchan HaLevi, which is a Sefer published while he still was alive. In the last years, they published a Sefer of his Psakim. As Rav Baruch pointed out, there were some other Psakim that were published earlier. There are multiple Talmidim that published some of his Psakim in English. There's a series called Halachically Speaking, which is from the Talmud of Moshe David Leibowitz, that has tons of short psakim of Rav Belsky. There was other Talmidim used to do different pamphlets, halachic pamphlets used to see published. And so there's a decent amount of Rav Belsky's Torah. They actually recently published another volume of Shulchan HaLevi on alternative medicine, which is not an easy sefer to find. And he goes through different issues of Avodah Zarah, other things, knowledgeable in the full gamut of, here is just one simple diagram which I went through the Shaila and I tried to bang my head, try to figure out exactly what they're talking about. Basically, taste transfer between one pot and another pot, if you'd have even like pipes between them and this, or stam without pipes, right? Understanding how taste transfers from one thing to another. There are stories.
You can do this in the camp kitchen.
Huh?
You can do this in the camp kitchen.
Yeah.
You don't walk around the planet.
Yeah. There are situations he was explaining Gemara, Rav David Kolodny, was a close Talmud of his, and he was explaining Gemara and was saying how the Gemara understood this. He says, don't you know the formula to figure out the volume of a cylinder? Like, of course, you have to know this, know the Gemara. It just runs it out. Knack told the story. From the genius was something which Klal Yisrael needs people like this to devote themselves to Torah, because life is complicated, situations are complicated, and there are a lot of great gedolim, but not everyone is a genius that is able to just comprehend all these types of things and just do it on the fly. He would do. Rav Genak testified, moving to Kashrus, that he was somebody that could do crazy mathematical equations in his head. There was ever see one of these big tankers carrying oils? So, okay, well, now it's carrying kosher oil, but yesterday it was carrying treif oil. Is there a din bittul b'shishim on such a thing? Okay, he figured out the length of this tractor trailer, thing. Did the calculation? Yeah, it's Plata B'Shishim. He was somebody who got his hands wet, hands dirty, climbed into vats, things. Tells a story in the book, has an amazing story of a meat plant where he's walking around. David told me also a story. He said the rule number one for kashrus is you don't just stop and walk around. The first thing you do is you sit in the back and fly on the wall, just watch everything he's doing. And then by watching and observing everything he's doing, then you zero in, okay, where there might be a problem here, there, and then you go for you just ask them, oh, you're doing it right? Oh, yeah, sure, Rabbi. Whatever you say, Rabbi. Sure. He was in a meat plant, and he was getting a little bit of the cold shoulder, unintended, by one of the employees there. So at one point he goes, stop the conveyor belt. Takes a piece of meat. And he says, you know where this piece of meat is from? I said, no. Right? He says, this is the blank and blank. Without showing you, this piece of meat is exactly over there. And then he goes and collects every other piece of that animal that was chopped up on the conveyor belt. And like a puzzle, puts together the whole cow backwards. From that point on, whatever the rabbi says, he would routinely go to kashrus, to go to do kashrus by a plant, and they saw he knows more than their engineers. He knew more than them, and he would learn these things. He had shilas. One of the other things we have on the sheet here, all these shilas, all different types to go through of birds, animals, what's kosher, what's not kosher, boom, species, this, that. If he had questions, he had people he would reach at the Museum of Natural History. That's how he did his research. He figured things out, he'd call, he would speak to experts, and he'd learn. I saw it even years later when he was recovering from his near-death experience, and he was struggling to walk and do different things. He says the therapists that were walking with him, he just asked, okay, I wasn't able to do that. Tell me what I need to do. And goes through the whole, he learned, basically therapy overnight, how to be, and figured out, okay, I have to do X, Y, and Z to get better, move this muscle, that muscle, that muscle, that muscle. The brain never stopped. Just an amazing, amazing genius. But what we have for kashrus, we just take for granted. Sure, Burger, okay, as an OU in the package, it's good. But you don't understand how much manpower and brain power, right? Belsky was the brain power that went into these things being kosher certified. Actually, it's interesting, he didn't start with OU. He originally started with the Kaf K. And I heard this, here in Florida, maybe we should have started with that too. By Belsky's oldest daughter, it's in Gross from the Beis Yaakov, like Gross is the Rosh Kol in Miami Beach. That's Mishpacha. That's his daughter, son-in-law of Belsky. I personally am very close to Belsky's oldest son, Aryeh Belsky. He's a dear friend. We worked together for years in Brooklyn, and just an amazing, amazing person. And I've talked to him a few times about his father. One of the things, like he said, he took the job in Kashrus because the chinuch didn't pay enough. He had a big family, Kananahara, double digits, and he needed to put food on the table. So he took an extra job in Kashrus. Really, actually, one Rebbe, I'll leave out who it was, one other Rosh Hashiva, questioned him. He says, I look down on you, just, shlappa, you're just running around with extra jobs doing Kashrus. And he said, okay, but so I'll look more like a shlappa when I don't pay back my loans. I'll take a job. That's when he entered the Chaf K, and the Chaf K point when he was able to go bigger, he still had a wonderful relationship. Rabbi Center, said he was so thankful that he had a Belsky work for him in the beginning years. I'll tell one other area where his genius, not just Kashrus, but goes up. There was a book in the Frum World, I never heard of it, called The Third Key. Reference to a Gemara, key of childbirth. And it was dealing with people struggling with having children, fertilization. And one of the side effects, many times people get treatments, is from the fertilization, they could end up having twins. Or even more, 4 quadruplets. So this book, based on the psakim of many Gedolim, said there's a concept of fetal reduction, where since having 4 babies, 5 babies is dangerous for a woman, so they would reduce them, they would abort them. And there are Gedolim that paskin you could do that based on the Din Rodev. With Belsky, they asked him to go through the book, they would like his haskama. Rabbi Belsky says, I can't give you haskama because of this reason. I disagree. I think the right thing is to keep the babies. I think it's not a danger to the mother. And he said, we spoke to this. And he stated his position very strongly. And he says, I would tell you to do your research again. Research it. That's how he left it with the authors. They actually researched it again. And when they decided, he convinced them to, okay, let's look at this whole thing again, totally. And they went through it. And they came out to his conclusion. They spoke to different experts. And they saw, So they wrote in the book, they wrote over that whole chapter, and they took out fetal reduction. What happened next is quite amazing. So fine, gave his haskama, book was published. My friend Aryeh Belsky, as well as a sister of his, both had quadruplets.
Wow.
Aryeh Belsky's own family. And some of the family asked him,
through this, or you don't know?
Stam. He was guarding his family the way he felt. But Lamaisa and Baruch Hashem, both 2 healthy sets of quads. One of the people testified by one of the weddings, he pointed at the photographer, you see? Those are 2 sets of quads over there in the family picture. And, someone said, does Rav think this is he got this as a schus for that book? He smiled. Who knows?
For those his children or grandchildren?
Grandchildren. There's so much. One other story gets the Kashrus, and then I'll transfer the controversies. And then someone was traveling. It was a U.S. Army chaplain who was being sent to Saudi Arabia. Before he went, he asked the Shaila, we know there's a heter of Chol Stam in America. What about in Saudi Arabia? So Belsky said, no, you can't have it. He says,
Could be camel milk.
And you can't do it. He says Somalia and Saudi Arabia, those are 2 places to avoid. He's on a base one time and he has to go out with some general. And he turns down the milk, turns down the coffee. No, just a black coffee, no milk. And afterwards, I'm gonna ask him, like, he's like, my rabbi told me you should be afraid of a camel walk. He's like, how'd you know? He knew everything and anything. Genius.
Europe countries.
Finishing off the third area. The third area we could definitely spend a lot of time on. There were so many controversies in his lifetime that overtook the frum world, whether one was the issue about the shaitels potentially being made using the hair of Indian women from temples.
How about the lace top controversy?
Okay, that's a different thing. Wow, I didn't know you're holding everything, Ed.
I hear from my wife about it. Yeah.
But let's first deal with the Indian hair shaitels. There, it was a major thing, and there are people literally burning their wigs, thousands of dollars of wigs. And there are people that, one of the Gedolim sent a Rav, a Dayan, to go to India, check it out. And Belsky flew to Eretz Yisrael to speak to that posuk. The posuk was a Yashav. And there's a collection of letters, point for point, back and forth between them. And Belsky basically slugged up everything that the Dayan did. It's wrong, this and that, and calmed that. There were issues, people were nervous of worms in fish.
Yes.
Worm infestations.
Yes.
And Belsky took that one on. People were worried about kosher milk, Chal Yisroel milk. There are issues of trephos with the animals.
The worms.
Belsky took on that one and would proudly walk into the dining room and out loud make a shahakal on the cup of milk. And,
the worms
pushing.
in New York City water.
That's the biggie. That's what I'll get to. On the sheets I have on the bottom here, the New York City water,
Filtered water.
he fought and and chuvas on it, although they posted it, though Feinstein answered it. Belsky fought that absolutely not Osir. And he went on, he quoted Ramosha himself talking about the use of microscopes and seeing microscopic things. And Ramosha himself writing Chas v'Shalom to say about Gedolim earlier that they were really eating things which are Osir, this. And Belsky fought very strongly. And he said just the opposite. He says all these people now that are filtering their water are going to come to more issues on Shabbos, potentially of doraisas, this, that,
Separating.
versus your crazy idea of bugs in the water. Now, practically, there were a lot of people. Belsky was the minority opinion in that scenario. Most people said to filter. But I'll tell you this, amazing story. Belsky was a Baal Chesed, and all types of people staying in his house. I'll tell you, Yeshiva Bachar would come for Shabbos. Not Dafka, his Talmidim. The story happened, the Talmidim called the house from a different yeshiva, wanted to stay by Belsky for Shabbos. And they spoke to the Rebbetzin, and they said, our Rosh Yeshiva said that we can't drink the New York City water. Now, some people would say, click, like asking to come to my house, and you're telling me, my husband's bar hachi, and she said, no problem, I'll buy a bottle of water, I'll use that to cook my chicken soup, and I'll use it for you to drink. That's how he held his house should be, despite the fact he was taking on the world as a warrior, as a fighter, not getting involved even in gittin and this and that. He was a fighter. But at the same time, he was a mensch. It's a beautiful, beautiful description of who Belsky was. I'll end with one tshuva, which I think also epitomizes him. Again, here we have this genius who transformed the standard and the level of kashrus in America. We have this genius who is ready to fight the world and stand up for Piskei Halacha. And Rav Baruch referenced to me this tshuva before. He has a whole tshuva debating about opening soda bottles on Shabbos. And could you do it? Could you not do it? What about someone who opens bottles, doesn't open bottles, can't? Anyway. Anyway, so at the end of the tshuva, he goes through all different things. He gives room to be mater. At the end of the tshuva, he writes the following. Vayiderech ha'yishara sheyavar bo adam. You know one of the best paths for a person to choose? Sheyechavim v'tzko ba'gul b'nei ha'shabbat sheyeh tabas muvdalos and ha'fakim. You should separate and open the bottles before Shabbos. Okay? He says, really, that's the best way to do it. Look, I give it heterim, but the best way is for one to open all the bottles before Shabbos.
Makes the fizz out.
Now he writes, Umihi shemefachin shiyach mizei de'achanuzu mishahu ma'ashu me'anaso. It's going to take away a drop of his hana. It's going to take away the fizz.
And the noise that it makes when you open it.
Yeah.
That's why they call it pop.
To which Belsky writes back, Yarko atzabo b'deas nechonos. The person should accustom himself to smart thinking. Shel yeh chayiv tului b'hanos. His life shouldn't just be dependent upon these hanos.
I know the tshuva.
Right? A man who's a genius, a man who literally his brain is so above the average person walking in the street, understands at the same time that people enjoy the fizz, the pop of a soda. And he says, okay, buddy, I get you. I understand you. I was an American kid too. I like ping pong. I like basketball. I get it. But you know what? There's a higher calling. A person who was able to be so down to the earth, such a genius. This is not a college professor. This is the God of Yisroel, a posek who's a genius and whose impact in kashrus and taking on so many halachic challenges and controversies really made a big difference.
How did all these controversies end up?
Ask your local rabbi. Now, Baruch Hashem, this was the 36th share of the year, which I'll give a little bit of a crazy thing. What that, according to the record keepers, that means this was a 495th share of this share, which means Be'ezrat Hashem, 5 shirim into next year, will hit a pretty crazy number of 500. Which is a tribute really to Rabbi Sharfman.
That means we have to have a deluxe break.
Did all the heavy lifting. To really get this going. But obviously other people here in the room, and it's a big deal. But okay, Baruch Hashem, 36 shirim closer to 500 we did this past year. And obviously there are a lot we could consider in the top 10 list, and I got votes today, but I got votes the whole year. I counted all the votes. We'll talk about it and talk about them. Number 10 is really not one share, it's really 5 shirim, really 6, I'll show you in a moment, are the wartime halacha share. Because unfortunately this year we went through a lot at the time of war. We had right away, the entire first month after the war, we had a month straight, 4 straight shiurim on wartime halachas. One of them in particular, someone pointed out this morning, yes, we talked about how to, that I think is something we Baruch Hashem still have going, that should continue to go stronger. Saying Tehillim, who knows what a difference it makes every single day. All these missions and all these people, cause money hearing people being killed, you have to realize Tehillim makes a big difference. And so much. What's eerie to me is what was the share we gave right before October 7th? It was on a Sunday before Yom Kippur. I wanted to give a share regarding Sukkot. So I called the share Yom Kippur and Shmini Atzeres. That's what we have to call the share. And it was tongue-in-cheek, because Shmini Atzeres is a day, the share was all about sitting in the sukkah on Shmini Atzeres, which many people don't do. And we went through clearly the halacha, the al-pi halacha, one should do that. So, okay, Yom Kippur, I'll buy that should be the one thing we need kapara for. But after 9/11, after 10/7, I was haunted by that Yom Kippur and Shmini Atzeres grouping, because just like the Yom Kippur War that literally happened decades ago,
On October 6th.
yeah, almost right there. Now, 4 generations later, we're dealing with a war like that, and in many ways beyond that, and that it just shook me. So I'm glad that we were able to touch upon halachas, Nogea the war. Number 9, we did a share called Shomer Pesayin Hashem. Hashem watches over the fools. And we went through practical applications of different things that those halachas go with. I just want to show one quick example.
Smoking.
Okay, right. Smoking is definitely one that Moshe talks about over there.
Eating, seatbelts, all that stuff.
Yeah.
People rely on that.
But so many things. Number 8, we did a couple share about fast. Fast on the Friday. We also did a share on the Yortzeit fast. Again, not necessarily something that most people do, but to explain the idea behind it and what it is, halacha, that there's an inyan to fast on the day that one's parent passes away. That was definitely something that garnered a lot of interest. Number 7, one we just did last week, by Bluth, was one of the personalities, and definitely a wonderful, colorful personality, a person who I think by the end of the share became beloved to people, that many people didn't hear of him before. And ArtScroll has a biography of Belsky that I've yet to publish on Rav Bluth. And I have to edit some parts. An amazing, amazing person. And taught us a lot. We had a share, which in my head is one of the shirim I have to continue. We started talking about things. It was an amazing share. I wanted to read much to give a part 2. But as the year ran on, things came up. On the Shechianu, honoring a special moment. We went through different cases of special things in life to make a Shechianu. Well, next to that, number 5, personally, was behind the scenes at a halachic wedding, and I had a front row seat talk about all different types of psulim you could have in Eidos, and the relatives, and all types of people being connected. That was interesting, at least to me. Number 4, Pesach with Chesed. Never did a share like this before. We went through all different chasadim that we found from Gedolim over the ages. With Nogea Pesach, which is one of the most busiest times of the year. But we went through all different stories of Gedolim acting with Chesed, chasadim that a person could do on Pesach. We talked, by the Seder itself, for Kiva Eger. We also had a story with Rav Hutner, of how they reacted when someone spilled something, got on them. All different stories. The Beis Halevi is another famous one. They come to a Shiloh, can I use milk for the 4 cups? Understood from there the poverty she was going through. Amazing. Number 3, AI and Teslas. AI is something which I have a friend of mine involved in technology who was all excited about this share, and many others. Teslas. Technology is definitely something here to stay. You have to deal with it. And we went through many different issues that come up with decisions being made or pre-programmed with AI, and how does that have a halachic impact? Number 2 is probably right now the most watched share of all time of this series, with over 1,000 views on YouTube. They say, but the share, we were just quick to the it was a matter of mazel and timing. But we heard some rumblings about tunnels under 770 and how some people were digging them. So we went through the halachic Kosher mishpat. If you dig a tunnel, b'shutfis, who's responsible? What happens? There was unfortunately damage done. How do you deal with that? And I didn't have an inside scoop who dug the tunnels and what exactly they were digging the tunnels for. So if it came to watch my share and expecting the inside scoop, they didn't get it. But there were quite a few likes on there. So it seems people stayed for the whole share and they learned something too. So you turn a crazy story, which probably shines a little bit of a black eye on some people, and you turn it into an interesting halachic discussion, changes the tone. But I think the number one share, according to the Home Office in North Miami Beach, was, I want to officially copyright the phrase. Alan, maybe we could work on this, getting a copyright. We do memorabilia on it. But it's called 2 rabbis, 3 opinions. Not 2 Jews, 3 opinions, but 2 rabbis, 3 opinions. And that was a share actually started by one of the chevra here. They had a question, their family had a question about something, and we thought it was a great topic. And we came out with all different things. I still have to get back. If you're watching today, someone from Yisroel reached out to me after that share. I feel bad. I didn't have a chance yet to respond to that email. But yeah, 2 rabbis, 3 opinions, and it was an amazing, amazing year. Thank you very much, everybody. And Yasher Kayach. We should bench.